From top to bottom, I think this is maybe the most talented the NBA has ever been. Going through every one of these superstars was not easy, but I think I have made my top 25 players, and I think I made a list that I can stand by. Before we get started with this list, I do want to mention a few things that went along with me making this list. The first thing is I believe that availability is the best ability, so if you don't play NBA games and you load manage and all that type of stuff, I'm not going to consider you for the list, or you're going to drop significantly if you just don't play NBA games at all. The second thing that I want to note is that this list is not who has played the best this particular season. What I mean by that is players like Cade Cunningham, who this is his first year doing everything. He's played unbelievable this year. But I believe that you have to do it consistently over a lengthy amount of time to be part of the top 25 players for my list. Another thing I would like to note is this is not who I would take in one series for my life. For example, like if I was just to say, okay, I want this player for this particular series, LeBron would probably be in the top 3, top 5 still at the age of 40. But that's not how I'm doing this list. It's going to be who do I want to go through a full season, night in and night out, who would I rather have? Another thing is this is not a future projection. This is mainly talking about Wemby. We know he has the potential to be one of the greatest players of all time, but I'm ranking him not off of his potential. I'm ranking him off of just right now and his talent as he is today. And the last thing I want to note is, like I said from the beginning, consistency is a big thing for me. Season to season, we're not just going off of your best year or your worst year. What do you play like consistently from season to season? Before we get into the list, I'm going to mention some honorable mentions that people that almost made the list, but there's a certain reason why they didn't make the list. I'm going to go through all that right now. First one, Joel Embiid, you don't play enough games. Simple. Kawhi Leonard, you don't play enough games. Like I mentioned earlier, Cade Cunningham, this is his first year doing everything, and he's played like a, honestly, top 15 player this year. But I need to see it next year and maybe the year after that. Darius Garland did not make the list because he hasn't been consistent. He had a All-Star year and then a year, and then now he's back to his All-Star form. So he just hasn't been consistent enough for me to be in that top 25. Another player is Chet Holmgren. He's still young. He got hurt, and I just need to see it through a lengthy amount of time as well. Paolo Banchero did not make this list. He has a lot of potential, but in my opinion, he's a flawed basketball player right now. He's not very good at dribbling, and his shot selection is just not great in my opinion. His teammate Frost Wagner also did not make this list, even though he's averaging 25 points a game this year. I need to see it more, obviously. Jaren Jackson Jr., he hasn't been consistent. It's been up and down with his career, and he gets into foul trouble too much for me. He's having an amazing year this year, but like I said, it needs to be consistent. And the last honorable mention is Evan Mobley. He's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year now because of Wemby being hurt, but I need to see it consistently over a lengthy amount of time like I've keep preaching over and over again. Okay, now we're going to get into the actual list. At 25, we have De'Aaron Fox, probably the fastest player in the NBA. He's a good playmaker. He's been consistent for about 3 years, ever since the Kings made that playoff run in which he won Clutch Player of the Year. One thing I love about him is he's one of the better point guard defenders in the league. He's averaged 20 points for 6 straight years. He goes through phases sometimes where he's not as aggressive, which I don't love, but when he's aggressive and he's getting downhill, he's very scary to deal with, and I have him at 25. Number 24, I have Bam Adebayo. The first half of the season wasn't pretty at all, and I expected a much improvement, especially coming off of the Olympics, which he played a key role in the U.S. winning the gold medal. But after him struggling the first half of the season, he's actually started to pick it up, and he's actually starting to play better as of late. He's still an anchor defensively, one of the most versatile defenders in the league. And for his size and for being a big man, he's actually a decent playmaker, and the offense actually runs through him in Miami. He's an undersized big, but he still rebounds the ball great for his size. He's just an anchor defensively. I haven't seen the offense improve like I wanted it to, but he's still averaging like 20 points or something like that. So I have Bam Adebayo at 24. At 23, I have Ja Morant. He's having a down year this year, coming off of last year with like suspensions and his big injury that he had last year. He hasn't been quite the same player, but he's still been a very good player. He's not a good shooter. I don't know if he'll ever be a good shooter in my opinion, but he's still probably a top 3 driver when he's getting downhill. His playmaking is very underrated, and he's probably the most athletic player in the league. The flashes we saw last year was honestly like a top 10 player in the NBA, but because of the down year and the consistency hasn't been up to par like I like, he's only at 23 for me. At 22, we have Bam Adebayo's former teammate in Jimmy Butler. He's had a lot of drama this season with the whole Miami Heat fiasco and him wanting to get paid, and he's not quite the player he once was when he was carrying the Miami Heat all the way to the championship. But he's still a very great player, and ever since he's been in Golden State, they look like a title contender. He's just an experienced veteran at this point. His elite basketball IQ is really carrying him. He's not the most skilled player anymore, but when he's living in the mid-range and he's driving to the basket, he's very good. And he can also play make a little bit. He's fit flawlessly with the Golden State Warriors right now. He just makes those little winning plays, and he fills whatever role the team needs him to. If he needs to play defense on the opponent's best player, he's going to do that. If he needs to take over for Stephen Curry on offense, he's going to do that as well. Even though he's regressed a little bit, I still have him at 22. And at 21, I have Lamelo Ball. He's probably one of the tougher players to rank because his talent is through the roof. I mean, you see it on a night-to-night basis. But I'm starting to get the sense that he may not be a winning player because he doesn't try on defense, and he chunks up way too many threes. I mean, this season he's chucking up 12 a game, and he's not an elite three-point shooter. He's a good three-point shooter, but he's not elite enough where he should be taking 12 a game. Now, he is an elite playmaker, and he's a great scorer. I mean, he was averaging 30, and he's an all-star snub for a reason. But I do have questions if he's ever going to win playing that type of style, and I do think that he probably cannot be your best player if you want to win a championship, but the talent is undeniable, and I have him at 21. And right above LaMelo at 20, I have Trae Young. He's a top 5 passer in the NBA, and he's a proven playoff riser. He's been very clutch, especially this year. On the defensive side of the ball, he is a negative for sure and a liability, but it's not because of effort like some of these players. He's just too small, and he's just too light to actually play defense. His shot selection can be very questionable at times, like he takes logo threes even though he's not the best three-point shooter and he probably shouldn't take those shots. But when he's not taking reckless shots and he's getting everybody involved, I mean, he's leading the league in assists for a reason. He's a very good player. I'm trying not to let my bias get in the way of anything, but I think 20 is a good place for Trae Young. At 19, we have Tyrese Haliburton, who's been very up and down this year, but he's still an elite playmaker and an elite player in this league. My real issue with him is he's not aggressive enough. I feel like he passes the ball maybe a little too much and should be more of a scoring threat at times, but the reason I would take him over Trae Young is mainly because of shot selection, because Trae Young can get reckless at times, which Tyrese Haliburton is the other way around, which I kind of prefer because Trae Young takes some very ill-advised shots, and also because he's just bigger, which means that he's a better defender just because of his size. I'm not saying Tyrese Haliburton is a great defender, but he's better than Trae Young because Trae Young is honestly one of the worst guard defenders in the league. But the way Tyrese Haliburton can control the pace of the game and make the pace fast tempo is very elite to me, and I have him at 19. At 18, I have Kyrie Irving. Maybe the best ball handler ever. I don't know. Somebody's going to have to let me know in the comment section below on that one. But y'all know Kyrie Irving. He's absolutely deadly around the basket, and he's become a knockdown three-point shooter and a bucket for most of this season. I mean, he's having one of his better seasons this year. He's not the playmaker that Tyrese Haliburton or Trae Young is, but he's a very efficient scorer, which I love efficiency, and he's just a bucket. He was averaging, 25 points with Luka, and Luka hogs the ball the entire game. So that's just impressive in itself. And late in game, there's not many players in the NBA that I would trust to take the big shot over Kyrie Irving. Even though he's been down in the playoffs recently, we still know what he can do. I mean, he probably has the greatest shot in NBA history. So I have him at 18. At 17, I have Damian Lillard. He's one of the best three-point shooters ever and can get hot in an instant. He's having a bounce-back season from last year. He's not the player he was at the peak of his power in the Portland Trail Blazer, but he can still take over a game at any point with his three-point shooting. Now, he is a defensive liability at times, but he does give you effort, unlike some people in this list, and in the clutch time, it's Dame time. You already know what it is. At 16, we have Karl-Anthony Towns. Probably by far the best big man shooter in the league. I mean, he's shooting 43% from three this season, which is absolutely insane. For some of the year, he's actually played like an MVP candidate. He might make first-team All-NBA by how it looks right now. He's a very good rebounder, but he really does lack in the defensive side of the ball, and he's not the rim protector that the Knicks need right now. And that's a big reason why the Knicks can't beat some of the better teams in the NBA is because Cat's not really a rim protector. But what he gives you on the offensive side of the ball is elite, and I have him at 16. Now, this is where it really starts to get tricky. At 15, we have Victor Wembanyama. First off, I want to say, prayers up to him. I hope this blood clot situation in his shoulder isn't going to ruin anything, and the Spurs season is obviously over. But this season is irrelevant. We just need to make sure Victor is okay, and I really hope this doesn't ruin anything as far as his potential because we know what he can be one day. He's one of the harder players to rank without actually making a projection because the potential is obviously there, but he's probably already the best defensive player in the league, and he's probably going to go down as one of the best defenders of all time in my opinion. He's becoming a very good three-point shooter as well. On the offensive side of the ball, he's taken a step this year on all three levels. My only real issue with Wemby is he tends to settle for a lot of threes, which is a good shot for him now, but he takes a little bit too many, for my opinion. I would like to see him work more in the post and the paint, but it's also because he lacks some muscle right now. But once he puts on that muscle, he's going to be scary. I know I've preached that I want to see it for a lengthy amount of time, but Wemby is an exception in my opinion because how good he's looked. I mean, when he was healthy, he arguably looked like a top 8 player in my opinion. So I think a good place for Wemby right now is at 15. At 14, we have Domantas Sabonis, who is by far the most underrated player in the NBA in my opinion. He's a mini Jokić, and if Jokić wasn't in the league, I feel like Sabonis would get way more attention than he's already getting. This will be his 3rd straight season this year where he's leading the league in rebounds, and he also leads the league right now in double-doubles, and the fact that he wasn't an all-star is the travesty in my opinion. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, he's not great, but the offense runs through him in Sacramento, and he does literally everything: pass, rebound, score the ball, everything for the Kings. So as of right now, I still have him over Wemby, but that's going to change in the next few years, of course, but I have Domantas Sabonis at 14. And right above him at 13, I have Donovan Mitchell. He's having an MVP year, and he's the number 1 option on the second or best team in the NBA right now. He's consistently been a top 15 player for years now, even going back to his Utah days. He's now developed a knockdown three-point shot. He's almost 40% from the three-point line this year, which is insane. My only real issue with Donovan Mitchell is he's on the shorter side at 6'3", which makes him a liability on defense sometimes. And also it is kind of hard for him to get off his shot because he's that small, obviously. But he's obviously a great player. I mean, he's clearly the best player on the Cavs right now. Now, his MVP case is solely based off of how good the Cavs are as a team, but don't get it twisted. Donovan Mitchell is still playing really good this season. I have him at 13. And at 12, I have Jalen Brunson. Now, I probably have Jalen Brunson too low in my opinion, but after thinking about it, I think this is the place I'm going to put him. Jalen Brunson, he's just a bucket. He's just a player where you could say, go get me a bucket wherever and whenever, and he's just going to deliver. He's efficient as well, which I love. He's 54% on twos, and he's 40% on threes this season. My main issue with him and why I don't have him as a top 11 player and higher like some people have him is because he's small. I mean, I think he's 6'1", and it's hard to be the best player on the championship team when you're that small. And because of his height, he lacks defensively, and he's a complete negative on that side of the ball, which is not because of a lack of effort. It's because he's too small to actually make a difference on that side of the ball. And the duo of him and Cat have been a deadly offensive duo, but on the defensive side of the ball is, in my opinion. I probably have Jalen Brunson too low because, like I said, he can get a bucket whenever you need it. But I think 12 is the place I'm going to have to put Jalen Brunson. And I know I may get some hate for this, but right outside the top 10 at 11, I have LeBron James. Mainly because he's 40 and he can't give you every night consistently. The flashes that he does produce are enough to catapult him this high. And the recent stretch that he's been of as of late is great. He's shown great energy and he's looked like a top 10 player. And still, any given night, he can be the best player on the court no matter really who's playing, in my opinion. But consistently, he cannot do it every single night. He takes breaks on defense and just doesn't really try at all. Except for this late stretch that the Lakers have been making this season, he takes defensive possessions off and just takes that side of the ball off, which is honestly acceptable. I mean, he's not supposed to be playing right now. He's 40 years old. But him being a basketball mastermind and one of the highest IQs we've ever seen in the game of basketball, and he's still one of the better passers in NBA history, and he's becoming a good three-point shooter. I mean, he's almost 40% this year, so good for him. But he can't give it to you every single night on a consistent basis like some of these other players, so that's why I have him outside the top 10. And before we get to the top 10, I do want to say, if you haven't already, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't. I think we're at 45 subscribers right now, and once we get to 50, I am going to be having a special guest on. So if you want to see that special guest on that episode, make sure you subscribe so we can get to that 50 subscribers, and also comment on what you agreed with in this list so far and what you disagreed with in this list. And now let's get back to the list. At number 10, I have Stephen Curry. Now, he has regressed, and he can't get downhill quite the same way he has. But like I said with LeBron, any given night, he can be the best player on the court no matter who's playing. He's having a down year this year as far as efficiency goes and points, kind of. But that's mainly because he's been triple teamed, and the Warriors haven't been a good team all year. But with the addition of Jimmy Butler, teams can't triple team him, and teams have to give Jimmy Butler some of that attention, so Curry has been on a tear as of late. In a down year for Steph Curry, don't get it twisted, is 39% from three. But that's also because he attempts so many. But you know what? He's allowed to take that many shots because he is the greatest three-point shooter God ever created. He's still probably the most feared player in the NBA right now because he can take over and end the game in a blink with the flurry of threes and his shot making. And I did just watch the Olympic documentary that's on Netflix now, which, by the way, if you haven't watched that as a great documentary, you should go ahead and go watch it. But that's sick he made in the Olympics, and then when he hit night-night, I mean, that was just sick. And I still have him as a top 10 player, even though he's not the player he used to be. And at 9, I have Anthony Edwards. He's one of, if not the most exciting player in the league to watch. With Cat being traded, the offensive load this season has fully been on his shoulders, and he's had to carry the Minnesota Timberwolves completely. And also because of the workload that he's having to put forth on offense, his defense is taking a slight dip. But when Anthony Edwards locks in, he's one of the better defending guards on the planet still. But Anthony Edwards' offensive game has taken a step up, probably first team or second team All-NBA this season again. From the year that he's having, teams are having to guard him a specific type of way, and they're closing off the paint so then he can't get there. So he's been forced to take a lot of threes this season. But he's shooting 40% from the three-point line, which I didn't think he would be this good of a knockdown shooter. But he does take too many threes in my opinion, and he does settle a good bit of times, which is why I don't have him as the best shooting guard in the league, and I have at number 8 Devin Booker. One big reason why I have Devin Booker over Ant is because Devin Booker's body of work is just phenomenal in my opinion. I mean, like I said with Jalen Brunson, he's a walking bucket from anywhere on the court, and if Devin Booker gets that left side of the court, it's most likely a bucket. He's averaging 26 points per game with Kevin Durant on his team, so that would be even higher if he didn't have such a scorer like Kevin Durant on his team, and he's also a very underrated defender. If you remember from the Olympics, he showed you how much of a team player and a defender he can actually be. And that really struck me as, oh my gosh, Devin Booker's a little better than I thought he was. Another reason why I do have Devin Booker over Anthony Edwards is because of Devin Booker's playmaking compared to Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is just wired to score, and sometimes he's just looking at the basket and all he's worried about is himself, which leads him to take some ill-advised shots and also run the double teams. He's actually complained this season about being double teamed, him not being able to do anything about it because he's just a young player. And Devin Booker really doesn't have a flaw in his game, in my opinion. I mean, last year he played point guard, and he was actually not terrible at that, playmaking the ball-wise. So that is why I have Devin Booker as the best shooting guard in the league. And at 7, I have Anthony Davis. Don't get it twisted with the Luka trade and everybody talking about, and me as well, talking about how lopsided the trade is. Anthony Davis is still one of them ones. And he might be the best all-around defender in the NBA, in my opinion. Even though I think Wemby is the best, Wemby can still, if you post Wemby up, he can still be a liability because he's so light. But Anthony Davis, you don't have to worry about that part. His defense has taken a slight dip this season because the Lakers and J.J. Redick really put the offensive load on Anthony Davis to try to get it away from LeBron. But on the offense side of the ball, he's been great this season as well. The big issue with Anthony Davis, of course, is his injury-prone label, which it is real, but he has been relatively healthy this season and last year, beside the injury that he's dealing with now. He doesn't wow you like some of the other players on this list, but he makes winning plays, and he's a big-time player, and I have him at 7. And at 6, I have, we did it! Sorry, Jayson Tatum himself. He's honestly probably the most complete player in the NBA right now. I mean, he's a B+ at just about everything in the game of basketball, in my opinion. His playmaking has taken a huge step as of late. I mean, the Celtics offense right now is running through him, and honestly, he's the point guard. He takes too many threes and forces a lot of bad shots and step backs, but I also believe that's because of Joe Mazzulla's system and how the Celtics play and how analytical they are. But he's an elite defender, and he can guard 1 through 5, whatever you need him to do. Jayson Tatum can do it. I mean, he's made 3 straight All-NBA first teams for a reason. When he's aggressive and he's not settling and he's getting downhill, he's scary and can score with the best of them. But that is his huge flaw, is sometimes he does get passive and he tries to be a system player. But when he turns it on, he's one of the best players in the NBA, and I have him at 6. And now for the top 5. At 5, I had Kevin Durant. Now, when I was making this list, I did not think Kevin Durant would still be a top 5 player. But when I was making it, and I kept going through the names, I was like, yeah, Kevin Durant's still that guy. Now, he's not the player he once was because he can't get downhill like he used to. And also, I don't know what's going on with Kevin Durant, but his free throw shooting this year has been an issue for some reason. I guess it's just a mental thing or something. But he's still a top 5 player in the NBA to me, mainly because he's just a hooper. He doesn't care really about anything else but hooping and playing basketball. He can get buckets with anyone on deadly efficiency. I mean, he's 53% from the field and he's 40% on threes. And he's still an above-average defender. He can go bucket for bucket with anyone, and he's the best scorer in NBA history, maybe. I don't know if that's up for debate, but he's also the greatest Olympian of all time, and I have Kevin Durant at 5. At 4, I have Luka Doncic. Although he is a complete cone on the defensive side of the ball, and he doesn't give effort, his offensive impact is just too much for him not to be top 4, in my opinion. He's a streaky three-point shooter, but when it's falling, he's virtually unguardable, and when he gets you in his hip pocket, good night. He's one of those players that you can just label him as a killer. He doesn't care about your feelings. He doesn't care who's on the court. He's just going to kill. He fills up the box score every time he plays. I mean, he almost averaged a 30-point triple-double last season, and he's one of the better passers in NBA history, in my opinion. Even if he weighs 300 pounds and he's out of shape and looks like he should be playing offensive tackle for the Los Angeles Rams, he's made 5 straight All-NBA first teams. You don't do that for no reason. He's coming off a season where he led his team to the NBA Finals and he just got traded for some reason. So I have Luka Doncic at 4. But I don't have Luka Doncic in the top 3 anymore because at number 3, I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or SGA. The free throw merchant label that he gets is just overused and honestly a little bit incorrect in my opinion. You don't average 30 points a game for 3 straight years just off of free throws. And also, getting to the free throw line is a skill. Some of the best players we've ever seen got to the free throw line a lot. Now, does he have a special whistle? Yes. But his mid-range is deadly, and his 3-ball is getting better by the second. He's not an elite defender, but in crunch time when they need a stop, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is definitely not a liability, and I feel like he can get a stop. And he just creates everything for the Thunder, if it's playmaking or if it's scoring, and he gets double-teamed constantly, and he still manages a way to average 30 every season. He's going to be the MVP this year. I mean, the Thunder are the title favorites for a reason. So I have SGA at number 3. But he ain't top 2 because at number 2, I have Giannis Antetokounmpo. Best way to describe him is just pure dominant. He's not the defender he once was when he won Defensive Player of the Year, but don't get it twisted. He's still one of the most elite defenders in the league, and he will shut you down. His really only flaw is the free throw line, which is getting worse in his NBA career for some reason. He's just turning more like Shaq every single day, which is crazy to me. But his mid-range pull-up game has actually been really good this year. I mean, he's averaging 30 points a game for a reason, and no one can stop him from getting downhill, and no one can stop him from getting to the rim. And that's why I have Giannis at 2. And honestly, I thought he was the best player in the NBA for a while now, but he's not the best because the best player in the NBA, without a doubt, is Nikola Jokić. I don't understand how he's so good. I mean, he can't jump onto the sidewalk, but he's the best player in the world. He's not a complete liability on defense, but he's definitely not good. But he's serviceable, in my opinion. But on the offensive side of the ball, he does everything. I mean, he's averaging a 30-point triple-double right now. And he probably should win the MVP, even though SGA is going to win it because they're not going to give Jokić that many MVPs. He's one of the best passers in NBA history, in my opinion. And in my opinion, it's for sure that he's the best big man passer ever. He just makes the right plays in the basketball game, and the way he sees the floor is like no other. And there's a big reason why when the Nuggets are on the court, they're one of the best offenses in the league and have shown to be one of the best offenses in NBA history. But when they're off, they suck. I mean, completely are terrible on the offensive side of the ball. There's a reason for that because Jokić is that good, and I have him as the best player in the world, in my opinion. And that's my top 25 players in the NBA right now. Looking at the list, there are some positions where you can argue and you can probably flip some players, but I think that I made a list that I 100% agree with. But I do want to hear in the comment section below what you guys agree with and what you guys disagree with. And that's going to be the end of this episode. If you enjoyed, please give this video a like and make sure to subscribe. And like I said earlier in the video, we're like 45 subscribers while I'm recording this video. And once we get to 50 subscribers, there will be a special guest. So if you want to hear from that special guest, make sure you subscribe. Be sure to comment on what I should talk about next. Be sure to leave your comments in the comment section below, what you agreed and what you disagree with this list. I'm always down to argue with people in the comment section below and respond to your comments, so be sure you do that. And also leave a comment on what I should talk about on my next episode or video. Also be sure to follow all my social media at the bottom of the screen to be alerted when I'm posting or anything that's going on. And that's all I have for this video. Thank you guys for watching and bye.